To go ahead and get started.
Yes, ma'am, we are ready and the recording has begun.
All right. Well, hello, everybody, and thank you for coming. What a wonderful program this has been so far. I really was well, I guess I had seen him before, but I was very impressed with Derek Edwards' keynote talk about, all the technological advances that are occurring. I was fortunate to have heard him as part of NCWE in the past. And I remember, it instilled a little bit of fear, but then once you start thinking about it, you're like, this is really cool. I need to make sure that we're ahead of the game and not always playing catch up, right? So I know you probably read the title of this summit, this session, and we're like, entrepreneurialism? I don't get it. This is a college. Why, wouldn't that belong in like CE or something like that? Well, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the National Association of Community College Entrepreneurs, but there is a group. There are some colleges that are doing entrepreneurialism and trying to get that way of thinking into our students so that we can help with economic development, we can help with student success, we can help, stay on this wave of technology and accept the change. So Dr. Exley and I have been talking a lot about getting this entrepreneurial type environment or ecosystem across our campus. So this is kind of the catalyst, hopefully, to start kickstart that thinking. And like I said, it's very important to develop this entrepreneurial mindset to help us adapt and keep up with change and actually be the change, right? And of course, we want to encourage innovation and resiliency. So before I go into the next slide, I want to, make sure that you put your questions in your chat, or if you want to ask a question, that's fine too. I want this to eventually become some discussion. So what I hope to cover in our time is to go through AR, VR, and MR. AR is augmented reality. VR is virtual reality, which some of you have probably already, heard or maybe even played with. Because a lot of people associate it with gaming, but it's used a lot more now, or these modalities are used more now with education. And then MR, which is mixed reality, and we'll get into the differences, and there's a lot of overlap in some of it as we go through. I want to then go into defining an entrepreneur, okay, and then discuss that entrepreneurial mindset. And as we go through that, kind of refer back to or think about, while I'm talking about these components or these elements that make up that mindset, go back to thinking about how AR, VR, and MR can connect with it, right? And I'll give you some recommendations or suggestions at the end on how you can overlap that. But like I said, some of this you may already know, but never really thought about it. And some of it may be hopefully brand new for you, information that you can start using right away and developing that entrepreneurial learning environment. I do tend to talk fast. So if there's something you're like, whoa, 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 just put your hand up or put it in chat or just speak up and say, hey, can you go back to that? Or can you talk about that again? So let's go ahead and start off with virtual reality. So virtual reality is immersive computer generated environment. A lot of time you may have seen, people with the goggles on the headsets and the little hand controllers, right? But they've made so many advances with this that it's not just gaming anymore. It's immersive experiences where you can travel to another country, you can go out into outer space, you can collaborate with other people, sit around a round table, you can create prototypes of things. It's a place that you can try things, fail, and be able to go back to the building blocks without it costing you a lot of money, right? But there's a college called Morehouse College that's really been forward thinking in this, and they've actually they offer two completely virtual reality based classrooms. So I'm going to show you just a real quick clip on this, so you can kind of see what's going on. In this bottom corner here, you see they're like the avatars of the instructors. So when this is in real motion, or if you're in that room, you're actually immersed into a classroom setting or into whatever it looks like, a gym floor that they have there. And when you look around 360, you're there, right? And you see them in 3D all around you, and they're interacting with these individuals. In this top corner up here, you can see it's students that are interacting with chemicals, right, with molecules. So I'm just going to show you a real quick clip on what they're doing. So you can see they teach two classes. One's history and one is biology. So it's completely immersive. So they take students to the battlegrounds as they teach. He still has a screen up. The students can interact with each other. They can interact with the professor. It's live, it's real time, but it's in a virtual setting. And the other one was a biology class. And it looks like, I don't really know the whole curriculum that they have and how they do it, all VR, but it looked like they were not only, venturing through some sort of structure, so you get that kinesthetic component. Now they're probably sitting in their chair zapping themselves through, but they're very interactive throughout that classroom. And then it looks like they went on a ride through a fallopian tube, or maybe through the seminal vesicles or something like that. So it's very interactive, engaging, and it gets students, thinking outside the normal classroom. Like I said, that kinesthetic component, that movement component really helps also with engagement. So that's virtual reality. So you're immersed in a computer generated environment versus augmented reality, where it's virtual components, it's computerized, digital content that's overlaying your real environment. Like right now, this is kind of what I'm in, is augmented reality, because this is not my office. Y'all know I'm upstairs in in a building, and I don't have a lovely window like this in my room, but this is overlaid on top of me, which is real, right? Um, you can use it a lot in different types of programs. A lot of people, think healthcare right away, but you can use this for many different things. And I'll show you in another video after this one on how it's being utilized. But this image here, this graphic is showing, we have these models in the lab, that healthcare students can practice on. But here they're wearing, I don't know if they're HoloLenses or some kind of visual display that then superimposes these interactive computer generated images that they can manipulate and move, and everybody that's synced in can see it together. I'm going to show you this video is a little bit longer, but it shows what a university is doing in engineering. But if you can think of like prototyping, or if you can think of other types of activities that can be done in a classroom, this is pretty amazing. Oh, sorry about that. So I mean, it's amazing what AR can do. And I know a lot of, individuals might be like, well, I don't know if they have it for my particular class. Well, there's so many different companies out there now. So many different software developers are jumping on this. But if there isn't something, there are a lot of small companies, small entrepreneurs, right, that are out there that would work with you to develop something. Now, yes, it probably costs money, but a lot of times being the pilot to partner with the college really is an incentive for them to kind of kickstart some of their stuff. So there's a lot. Actually, I met a gentleman, Dr. Exley, and I went to a really cool place called the Ion up in Houston. And it's if you've never been there, it's an interesting place to network, but it's a place where a lot of entrepreneurs and small businesses and even larger businesses reside together. But I met a software developer there that reached out to me saying, hey, is there any programs you'd like me to work with? So opportunity is out there. And that's where, we can kick in our entrepreneurial mindset to think about what we can use to help our students. And so mixed reality is basically AR. Like I said, there's a lot of overlap and sometimes it's interchanged. But when there's additional information added to what you're already using or doing. I've got a little tiny clip again on how mixed reality is used. Basically, you have a book or a textbook, and I believe this is a physics book, and how you can see, even if you don't have the headsets, students can use their phone or they can use a tablet and they can make things come to life. So I'm going to go ahead and just play this clip real quick. All right. So as you can see, sky's the limit. I mean, with this technology, there's so much you can do. And for any of those of you that use like Snapchat or even TikTok or some of those other apps, they have all those filters on it that do a lot of this. And it actually reads what your setting is. Like it changes you. It knows where your eyes are, your mouth, your nose. So it makes those changes. And I know there's companies out there. I believe it's the one that's Arlupa, and then there's another company, I can't remember the name of it, where if you were to draw something, the AI reads it, or the software reads it. I'm not totally techie, so I may get the get the terminology mixed up a little bit on which does what, but it brings it to life in a 3D manipulate 3D state where you can manipulate it and interact with it. It's pretty cool stuff in that mixed reality setting. So, I did have the question at the beginning, is this stuff that I can use in my classroom? And I believe it can be used in any classroom. You think about English, how could it be used in an English class or a literature class? Well, take them to the place that it's happening, right? There's a lot of different things, and we could talk more about that as we go on, but I want to now shift a little bit and go into that entrepreneurial thinking, or what is an entrepreneur? So let's take a couple of minutes real quick and I'm going to put the question out there. Anybody want to give me without Googling it or anything like that, what is an entrepreneur? What do you think of? Yeah, great idea for an English classroom. Excellent. Yeah. So what do you think of when I say the word entrepreneur? Anybody want to just put something out there? You don't have to chat. You can turn on your microphone if you want. How about I'll kickstart it. I'll put something up there just to get you to think. You probably think of Shark Tank, right? A self-starter. There you go. Good job. You're getting on the pathway that I'm going to be going, because when we think about, a lot of times you hear entrepreneur, you think small business, someone who sees opportunity. Good job. Y'all are great. Excellent. Creator of business, right? Creating something in order to make money. Okay. Yep. You're right. Someone who sees opportunity. Y'all are exactly right. There's not really a right or wrong answer, right? Because there's so many different things. They're innovative. They seek opportunity. When you think of Shark Tank, they're individuals that are coming, with innovative ideas, looking to, of course, get venture capital or money to continue to grow their business. But there's also different types of entrepreneurs creating something new. Yep, exactly. Who's this guy? Anybody know? Mark Zuckerberg, right? The creator of Facebook. He was a college student when he thought about this idea, right? Or kick-started it. Anybody know who this fella is? Look at his feet. He's the creator of Tom's, right? He went to Argentina on a trip and was visiting a friend, and she brought him to this area that was a poverty-stricken area, and he knew, those areas, people lived without shoes, but he didn't realize the extent of it, right? He saw blisters on their feet, the sores, the young children. And so, he decided to use his entrepreneurial mindset, right? And create a company that if you buy shoes, he would donate a pair of shoes to, the individuals in Argentina and globally, actually, that needed shoes. So he would be considered what's called a social entrepreneur, although he is also a business entrepreneur because it is a for-profit business. But when you think of an entrepreneur, it doesn't necessarily have to be business oriented, right? It's being able to think of something, come up with an idea that's innovative, and a solution usually, right, to some sort of a problem. See a need, fill a need, right? Here's someone that many of you may not know. You probably don't unless you went to, I believe it's Pikes Peak Community College. This young man's name is Israel Lucero, and he saw a need at his community college. He had taken an orientation class on the entrepreneurial mindset, but he, after doing a survey, he realized that, the school had a nutrition problem. And then after looking at some of the data and talking to his fellow students, he thought it might be related to students taking classes from instructors that had different learning styles that didn't necessarily match with them. So he created an app that students and faculty could kind of align based on learning styles. Now, he kick-started it, they piloted it on his campus, and unfortunately it did not succeed, which is part of entrepreneurship, right, is resiliency, being able to bounce back. It did not succeed, he said, because the faculty were not happy with the way the app was set up and this and that. But lesson learned, he took that experience, he learned from it, and he moved on, and he's gone on to be a software developer and app developer. So he saw a need and he attempted to fill a need. And part of the entrepreneurial mindset, which we'll get to in a second, is, you come up with great ideas. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't work, but that's okay. Learn from it and move forward and move on. Reinvent it, reinvent the wheel all the time, right? Go from bringing a rigid wooden wheel to being one that's now never goes flat. They've got so many great things, right? Things are always not necessarily need improvement, but can be worked on or innovated. Before I leave this slide, I also want to recognize our faculty and staff here at Alvin Community College. I mean, you all kicked in the entrepreneurial mindset when COVID happened, right? We had to be innovative and reinvent everything. So I think we do a lot of it without necessarily realizing that we're thinking and acting as entrepreneurs. And what we want to do is, looking at these individuals I have on the screen, is we see them at times where they've already hit that successful point, right? And they've got an innovative idea already, and they're already bringing it to the table by the time we see it, right? But what do they all have in common, and what could we offer, or what could happen to our students, right? Is we could teach them to get to that level. So one thing that they all have in common is they started off as just ordinary people, right? They were just ordinary people like you and I, like our students, but they did extraordinary things, right? They're ordinary people that did extraordinary things. And that is something that, everybody's capable of. I believe we have it innately in us. It's just a matter of how do we take those ideas and those thoughts and actually bring it to the table. And that's what hopefully as we go through this presentation today, we can think about how we can embed these things into our classrooms that can help the students. And a lot of that is starting with that entrepreneurial mindset, right? So this is the key constructs to entrepreneurial mindset, and we'll go through each one of these, and then we'll tie them into some classroom things that we can do, and also how we can utilize AR and VR to do some of these things, right? So it's self-efficacy, internal locus of control, intrinsic motivation, resiliency, and growth mindset. So self-efficacy, right? Believing in yourself, and when you believe in yourself, you'll succeed, right? Or you believe that you can succeed. Now, have you ever had that student that says, they're struggling in class, and then they finally come in to meet with you, and you're like, you're not doing so hot. And they're like, oh no, just please, I know I can do this. I had XYZ happen. I know I can, I believe in myself. And then they bring it to the table. They come back and they study hard, they follow your instructions, and they succeed in your class, right? So that belief in yourself is essential, right? And you figure a lot of the students that come to us, especially here at a community college, they may not have come from an environment where they had a lot of positive reinforcement or things that really gave them that outlook. And so what can we do as faculty and staff here at Alvin Community College to help instill that component is believe in yourself, and you will succeed, right? Believe that you can do it. It's like that, was that little train? Was that, I think I can, right? If you believe it enough and you believe in yourself, you'll do the right things. And a lot of these other components will all fall together, and you will be successful. And one of the things, let me go back real quick. When you think of virtual reality, even if it's just a game or if it's a project or something like that, if you give them those opportunities to do things and keep trying, right? And do little things that become successful with small rewards, right? It starts to build some of that confidence. One of the other components is that internal locus of control. What do I mean by that? Well, that is that belief that you are in control and that you take responsibility for your outcomes or for the outcomes, that you can control what happens. If I study or work hard, I can pass this class, right? Versus external locus of control, which is I blame external forces for my circumstances, right? It's fate. I've got bad luck. No, luck isn't involved in this. It's the hard work that you put in, right? So teaching that concept in some of the projects and activities that you do in your classroom, letting students know that they are in control of their outcomes, right? Look at your resources you have, and you can produce the outcome that you want, right? Intrinsic motivation. Oh, this is the fun one, right? We want them to take our classes, be involved in our programs, right? Because they want to be there, not because, well, I have to take this class because it's part of my curriculum, right? I have to take it. We want them to know that they're taking it and involved in that class because they're truly interested in learning, right? Y'all know that if they are truly engaged and can relate, if the content is relatable, instead of, oh, it's just part of my curriculum, it has nothing to do with what I really want to do. If they can make it relatable, they'll become more curious about it, right? They're going to dive into it. Not only are they going to read the assignment you give them, they're going to watch some videos on it. They're going to go look at maybe some individuals that are practicing or doing something similar to what you're talking about or doing in your class, right? So make it relatable, make it tangible, stimulate that curiosity so they want to learn. They take pride in learning. They're not only doing it so that they can get an A, right? I'm only taking this class because I want to get into nursing, right? Anatomy and physiology. That's the only reason why I'm taking it. Well, hopefully you're interested in human anatomy, right? If you're going to become a healthcare provider, hopefully this is interesting to you and you want to learn it for your own sake of knowledge as well, right? Now, the extrinsic motivation, it does say money. Okay, I get that one. That's a big motivator for a lot of people, right? But this entrepreneurial component, especially if you're looking at the social aspect of it, there's civil entrepreneurs, all that other stuff. They are usually successful because they have that passion, that purpose. They want to do it, and therefore they're successful in it, right? So, no matter what topic or what class you're teaching, how can you make that relatable to all your students? Sometimes it's bringing in a guest speaker, someone that's an entrepreneur that does that, and let's use English again, because, bring in someone that's an editor or something else, an author or whatever, make it tangible, make it where they are vested. Again, going into virtual reality, let them go explore, let them sit in virtual roundtables and talk about different things. Just making it so, like I said, they want to learn, that they have that intrinsic motivation, that drive to learn more and stimulate that curiosity. Because another thing that's a part of the entrepreneurial mindset is curiosity. Like I said, there's so much that it encompasses. I just picked those several key components because they're kind of like the very first stage to get them along that pathway to being those big innovators. So, stimulating these to the extent that we can is just going to only, like I said, help them be successful, not only in your class, but also throughout life. I'm going to take a breath for a second to see if there's any questions or if anybody has any comments. Right? You've heard that a couple of times. That's okay. I get it. All right. Growth mindset, right? It's the belief that your skills can be developed through deliberate practice, right? Versus a fixed mindset, which is you have traits of intelligence and skills. You're basically, I'm born with it. This is just the way I am, right? Failure, I'm not good at this because I don't have the ability to do that. Now, that does happen in some instances, right? But for the most part, when it comes to being innovative or thinking or wanting to learn more, the growth mindset is someone that accepts challenges as an opportunity to grow. They accept failure. Failure is an opportunity to learn. Now, one thing that's hard in education, because a lot of times we're like, here's the assignment, you pass or you fail. If you fail, there's significant consequences, instead of, okay, you failed, but let's take this as an opportunity to grow and learn even more, right? How can we do that? Creating a safety net for failure in those classes where they learn, because y'all know real life, right? And when you get in the workforce, get out there in the real world, that there's a lot of obstacles and challenges, and you're going to hit some roadblocks and stops, and you may fail, you may not succeed in certain things, but how do you overcome that, right? And that look at failure as an opportunity to grow, not as a dead end, right? Not as a terminal consequence. And then, of course, resiliency. A lot of these overlap and kind of flow together, right? And being able, the ability to successfully adapt to adverse events by optimistically interpreting them as temporary. Finding, that it's something fixable. And like I said, it's not a terminal end. Right? Versus someone that has a more pessimistic interpretation, that's going to make those challenges come across as this is permanent. It kind of can also affect, going back to the very first component of self-efficacy, right? It can kind of drop down the belief in their self. So there's kind of a catalyst or chain effect in this. So having that resiliency, that ability to adapt and overcome that fear of failure. And I like to put persistence with this one because it's really important to be able to keep going and be persistent. I mean, I think of y'all during COVID and how resilient everybody was, and right now, coming back with everything that's going on in the world right now, resiliency is essential, and we need to help each other and nurture that, as well as our students. I mean, a lot of these principles can be applied to all of us, right? There's areas I need to grow on as well and continue to nurture and get better at. So thinking about these different traits, right? When you foster that and students can master that or start to think in those manners, they become curious, right? And when you're curious, you look into things, and sometimes you identify a problem, right? Maybe not a problem, but something that maybe needs a little bit of innovation, or they get an idea, right? And then hopefully what happens as they continue to grow, they believe that they can do it. They use, innovative ideas, reach out into their network, that they can come up with a solution. And then, like, hey, I got a great idea. Let's do X, Y, Z. Or, I think that this app would help these students, or whatever I can create shoes and sell some and donate some, right, to other individuals. The idea is there, but then the next step is action, right? A lot of people get stuck on that action step. How do I bring it to the table? How do I make this happen? And so that's what I'm going to talk. I have a slide coming up in just a minute about design thinking and how to actually bring things to the table and not be afraid to do it, but having resources and using collaborative methods can really help complete that full circle. It cracked me up when I was creating this slide because it's like, if you got a problem, I'll solve it, right? Y'all know Vanilla Ice. I was like, who knew he was preaching about entrepreneurship, right? Anyhow, so now looking at self-efficacy, internal locus of control, intrinsic motivation. I used to have 5 now. It's like, see, we can go through all these songs, right? Good. Resiliency, growth mindset, all that. How are we going to now foster and cultivate and encourage this in our learning environment, right? And create that entrepreneurial ecosystem. And you can see here, what I'm showing is a what's called an XR ecosystem, which is a virtual reality, and you can have AR reality learning environment as well. So I wanted to kind of tie that back in because there's a lot of neat things that you can do when you're thinking about innovation, when you're thinking about collaboration, when you're thinking about self-belief, resiliency, bouncing back, do it again, try it again. It's okay. Figure out how to get over this problem, right? In your learning environment. Because a lot of times, like I said, instruction is linear in a sense, is I'm going to do X, Y, Z to attain this outcome. And I know we're outcomes based. We still need to get to the outcomes, but can we have a little wiggle room in that, within that, have some safety nets and experience some of these different components and still attain those outcomes, right? So we want some things that we can do in our classrooms to help stimulate that way of thinking is to help students think broadly and unleash their creativity. So instead of you giving them the problem, let them find the problem. Right? Let them discover a problem. You can maybe give a topic, but have them find a problem or come up with a solution, right? And I think that even helps, just even thinking of as an employer, if I'm hiring somebody, I want somebody that's innovative, that can help me succeed, become more efficient. I want someone that, okay, you found a problem. Instead of just coming in and complaining about it, how about you come to the table with some solutions too? Because I may not even have known that problem was there. So I may not have the answer right there, right? Come up with solution A, B, or C, and let's talk about it, right? So to stimulate that way of thinking is if a lot of times you've heard of pitches where companies will say, okay, I need to come up with a marketing concept to help reach this demographic. Can you have your students create it for me? That's one way of doing it. But you can also, if you're reading a story or something, is have them identify a situation that they think they could have changed if they were there, right? And how would they do it? I do have on here a couple slides of design thinking. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. Instead of brainstorming, right, or just kind of coming up with ideas kind of on the whim, design thinking is a framework for innovation and a way of thinking. And so instead of being linear, right, where, this is an idea, I'm going to go ahead and create it, and I'm just going to throw it out there, that there's a lot more thought. And you can see on this first slide, or this first image, where it says empathize, right? And that's where you listen to, and it says it's human-based, to the individuals that you're doing this for, right? You listen to what would help them. It's like our students, that student panel, listening to them was wonderful. There was so much insight that you can gain and hear it from their perspective. We can't do things thinking it's the best for them without listening to them, right? And hearing what they need. And then it's defining what is the solution, collaborating with others, and that's where VR can come in. Oh, here's Siri's going to help us. Sorry about that. Collaborating, creating prototypes, creating designs, storyboards, whatever it is, right? Ideating, sorry, and coming up with then a solution or a prototype. And then you bring it back to that initial focus group, you listen to them, and then either you go ahead and send it off, and or enact it or implement it, or else you go back to the drawing board, right? And so you can see it's not linear. It's not, well, wavy. It's not totally linear, but it's not just a start and an end. It's a continual process, right? There was an article that was, or it was a little tiny abstract that was out there about a company that had kicked off, I think it was a beauty product or something like that. And they realized that they were marketing and only, their demographic that they were aiming for was an older demographic when they missed out on a big group of individuals that were under 50 years old or whatever, after talking with people, they're like, hey, I want to use that too. And I'm only 30 or I'm only whatever. And so they went back, reevaluated, reinvented it and brought it back to the table. So it's that way of thinking of, solving problems and bringing actionable results to the table. Some other things that you can do is have the students chart their own course, right? Like I said, they're used to that packaged idea. You could do some team-based projects where you challenge them. Like I just said, I guess I kind of jumped the gun on this one. Sorry, I already talked about this slide for the most part, but have them conduct the research, right? And some of that research can be done on, in virtual reality as well, or, augmented reality to try different things out and see if it works. And then create a solution and plan the action. And the key to this, though, is not providing a blueprint, right? Let them come up with the path. There is no right path to get there. Let them come up with the problem, right? So like it says on the slide, there's no blueprint for students to follow in developing these projects. So many are going to find this lack of direction confusing, right? In some cases, it's even frightening when you don't, well, what do you want me to do? I don't get it. Kind of like I went to one of the sessions earlier and they were saying, the assignment was to write a paper about the color purple, or not the color, about purple. Didn't say if it was the color purple or whatever. Leave that open, but of course you got to communicate to the students that this is open. I want you to come up with something or come up with, don't give them the walls in that box. Let them explore it, right? So like I said, overcoming that fear, being able to work through those difficult challenges creates a stronger person, and in the end knows that they can do it, right? And then of course, teaching students the value of changing course. And this is hard for all of us. We've had to change course a lot, especially after COVID. Learning how to fix things and readapt. Change is difficult. It's scary. So learning from mistakes, course correcting, not meaning like take a course. It means the path that you're on, right? So fix what you're doing, reevaluate it, and move on, right? So let students make mistakes and fail, not make it a terminal negative consequence. Teaching it into it, turn it into a learning opportunity. And I know I already mentioned this, is that it's great preparation for the real world because we have lots of obstacles and challenges, and they only make us stronger. And I think with the AR and the VR, it's a safe place to have those types of experiences too, because it doesn't cost anything. It costs the initial software development headset, but you're not having them fail on a computer or on a very expensive Laerdal model or on a real patient in a hospital in a clinical setting, right? You can have consequences in a virtual setting. But challenge students to take bold actions, right? Because if you look at the entrepreneurs that I posted at the beginning, is they took a risk, right? Taking that risk, taking bold actions in order to pursue your dreams. And knowing again that you can reroute or change, and it's okay if failing is okay to an extent, right? Ideate ways to improve processes and meaningful solutions, and make your ideas actionable, right? Where you can actually bring it to the table, make it happen. Look at your resources, look at what you have, and bring it out. Bring it up in understanding that students can't always do it alone, and neither can we, and neither can a lot of these entrepreneurs. They had support and help and user network. So these early ideas or the mindset, the concepts are to help them get to that point of where they're going to need to call on for resources and things like that. And so what we're doing also as an institution is we're networking in business and industry, working with our chambers, working with our economic development centers so that we can collaborate We can help our students take that next leap. They can become good employees, right? They can become the innovators. They can help become the driving force of our economic development in our own communities, right? Make the world a better place. So I know I talk fast. I know it seemed like two different things, but I want to be able to mesh them together, and how you can utilize the technology as a tool to do some of this. And some of this, of course, won't be done with VR, AR, but questions or comments? Crickets, songs, dances.
One
Do
of
I
the
have
things
any?
that I thought about during this was I used to teach elementary school and then junior high school, and being a public school teacher, I was thinking about how is that different than being a community college teacher, because I'm an adjunct also. And it seemed back in teaching public school, it was more about getting 1 years of growth in each student, and whereas teaching in community college, it's more about making sure that each student achieves the objectives. And so that's two different things, I think. And when you talked about the growth part of it, I was like, well, so how do students grow then in a community college classroom? And I think one of the things that we maybe can improve on is we put so much stake into things like a final exam, and not enough effort, I think, into checking progress along the way to make sure that there is growth, instead of you only find out whether you know it or not at the very end, and by then it's too late, right? And so
Right.
I think that if you look at it kind of like to where you don't have a year of growth in each student, but you do have a semester of growth in that curriculum, and there's still things that you can put in place there, throughout the semester, instead of just waiting to the end to be able to find whether or not there is growth.
Right. I agree with you 100%. Our goal is to make sure that they understand and have a very good mastery of the outcomes, right? How we get them there is up to you all. You know what I mean? How do we get that? It doesn't have to be tested in, a multiple choice test or, written essays. How else can you validate in in an objective means? I get it, because we need to have measurable outcomes, to demonstrate that they've mastered that. I'm a big advocate for service learning and for experiential components. And if you can have, experiences out in the field, right? Or if you can have them, and that's in the field, meaning it doesn't matter what subject it is, right? Or have them through VR. If they can't go somewhere, bring them there, right? Expose them. We also have what are called 360 cameras. So you can take it and you can film it and expose students to certain things as well. But testing can be done in many different ways. It doesn't necessarily have to be a written exam. I think the project-based things, the more you can make it like what they're going to really do in the real world, I think personally, anyhow, it's going to help them more, right? It makes it relatable. It makes it actionable. Manuela, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I had an idea, and I loved your speech. I think it was great, because really we need to get the students to want to learn from the inside out. I remember when I was doing my master's program, I had to fill out these learning contracts, and I hated doing them. But then afterwards, I really saw the value of it, because in the beginning of the semester, I have to let the instructor know what I'm bringing to the classroom. And it actually relates to real life. In real life, when you sign a contract to go to work, you're signing a contract. And I think that would help the student take a little bit of the responsibility for learning. And when things don't quite go right, we can go refer back to that and said, okay, remember, you said you would, invest through.
Yep. Oh, you froze.
To improve that. So that could be something we might want to implement. I don't know, because not everybody will be on board on that, but maybe we could try and see if it helps the students or helps the instructors in any way.
I think that's a great idea. And I believe, I don't want to speak on behalf of Dr. Exley by any means, but I believe he was at an institution that did a commitment to learning like that as well. I think that's a great idea, especially when we look at that internal locus of control, and accountability, right? So they're agreeing that they're accountable right now at the beginning. And it's not like a contract, like you better get, you understand you're going to do X, Y, Z. It's, I am here because I want to be here and I want to learn, right? And this is what I hope to get out of this class. I think that's important, and how it can help them along their pathway even more so.
Yeah, I think in the beginning, every student wants to, right? They sign up, they're looking forward to it. It is actually week 2 or 3 where they start becoming discouraged. So hopefully we don't lose them week 2 or 3. And
Right.
maybe that can help them stay on track.
Yes, I think that's a great idea. Anybody using VR right now in their classrooms, or AR? I know some of the biology department has been using it, and I know nursing is exploring some great things, but anybody else?
Not using AR or VR is very interesting, but I am actually doing something very similar to how you like a class structure like this already with entrepreneurial like effort. Cause I teach English, right? And what we do is we have them do a problem solution essay, and it's like the big writing component. And so they identify a problem, then they come up with a solution, and they craft arguments based on like our textbook and what we teach. And then the objective is that they go and do what they say the solution, or at least part of that solution. And then they present it. And this is all based off of Charlie Bevel's passion project. But I put a little bit more of an entrepreneurial like slant to it. Teaching stuff like doing feasibility analysis, SWOT analyses, and stuff like that, and stuff that I basically remember from like back when I was in grad school when I took those classes. And so I always tell the students, like, if they get discouraged and stuff, I'm like, well, you're the one who said you wanted to do this. So I mean, you could have just said, I'm gonna go pick up trash on the beach, but you're the one who's like, oh, I want to create this, and I'm like, okay, well, that's what you're passionate about. So I always kind of pull that back around and say, well, you said you cared about it. So
Yeah.
do something. I mean, whether or not you succeed, I'm not grading you on that. Grading you on what you're writing.
Yeah, that you put thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful. Well, and those of you, I did put together a small team of entrepreneurial, or I've invited a few to be on the entrepreneurial, like, champions across campus. But if any of you are interested in doing more with this, let me know, because this is something that just has to kind of become part of the culture, that it's just part of what we do, and that we encourage each other, we collaborate, we maybe have some collaboration stations, and we have maybe student clubs, things that help each other and help them, and just learn to think like that, right? So if you are interested, and my contact information is on here, you can shoot me an email. I'd love to chat more about it. There's so much. Like I said, this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg, right? There's a lot more underneath it that we can do. And so we're taking baby steps. And I think the very first step is I'm so happy y'all came here and took the time out of your day to learn and to discuss more. I think, are we out of time now, Thomas?
No, we have 5 minutes.
Oh, we have 5 minutes. Okay,
Yes,
great.
ma'am.
Anything? What else? Anything? I'd love to hear what y'all are doing in your classroom. So please share, or any concerns that you have. Thank you, Dr. Mann. Any concerns or any potential obstacles that you think that might come out of this, or anything that I said? Make sense, kind of? It's just now it's like, okay, how am I going to do this in my classroom? And if you need help, again, let's talk about it. Let's look at some options. Let's be entrepreneurial, right? Because you kind of have to kick in all those entrepreneurial components when you do reevaluate how to do something, because that's a problem, right? And to find a solution, we're going to use all those components. So, anything else? Anybody have anybody played with VR before? Oh, Bridget, I see your hand up.
Just a question. You said that you had a small group. That small group, are they gonna, like, if you're interested in trying to implement it, are they gonna help, instructors
others
with that process, or, give them Insight, feedback, all that type of stuff. I mean, I know a lot of the high schools do these like entrepreneurial type of things. So a lot of the young students coming in probably would expect our campus to have,
Have
you
some
know, something similar in our in the classrooms.
Right, right. And so that's the goal. Like I said, all I did was basically ask, hi, do you want to be on this team? So we really haven't even, this is all brand new, something that we're going to be kicking off this semester and hopefully continue to grow and grow and grow it. We partnered with HCC. They're going to come and they're going to kind of do a kickoff seminar that everybody's going to be invited to. Like I said, we're working with other entities as well. So we want this to be, like I said, an entrepreneurial ecosystem where it's just kind of innately built in across our culture. And that we start it right at the beginning when we get our, even when we work with the younger students, working with the high schools as well. But, everything from the mindset that we just talked about to financial literacy to, everything, the whole picture of it eventually, but we are in the infantile stages. So the goal is, yes, that we will have the resources and help for you as we progress through.
Thank you.
Sure. Now, if y'all don't have any VRs, you just want to try it out over in S building on one of our innovation grants, we got funding for 6 Oculus 2 headsets. So you can come try it out there. So it's fun. And they've made a lot of headway because people are worried about feeling sick with those headsets on and stuff, but they actually now do eye tracking and vestibulocochlear involvement and all that other stuff. So my little brother's the first mechanical engineer Oculus ever hired in their research department. So he knows more about all that. And I've got a doctorate in healthcare, right? So, or in chiropractic, and I should know it, but he knows all the latest and greatest because they incorporate it into their technology. All right. Anything else? We got a minute and a half, right?
2 minutes by my watch.
All right.
We have a hand up, Manuela.
Yeah, it's me again. I talk too much.
There you
But
go.
I do have a great idea. I teach math and we are really a lot developmental, but I also teach statistics and I am a statistician. I would love to introduce R, and R is actually a free program that a lot of people use in healthcare and biology and psychology. So I would like to get away from the computer, and maybe we need to make a club or something extra on top of the classroom for those that are interested in starting to code. We know already the high schools, they code, they have robotics, but at least we can do graphs, really small and stuff like that. Just get them started, and then wherever they go, they can develop themselves further. But maybe that would also be a start for statistics.
Oh, I think that's a great idea.
It's not as cool as the stuff you all have in the S building, but
no, but that's cool stuff. It all comes, like I said, anything. I mean, it's great. And that's
I
awesome.
will write you an email and maybe I'll get together with you and talk about some things that maybe we need to talk about.
Oh yeah, that sounds fabulous. Yes, please do. Please do make sure you get my email address.
Oh yeah, no problem. I can find it.
Well, we are officially out of time, but it seems like there isn't another session, Dr. Ebert. So if you want to stay and talk to people, please feel free to, but I'm going to stop the recording now.
Okay. So those that were shy